They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KL.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the rigging soon. Aye, all hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true. We speak the words, we wear the scars, we make the old world new. No gold without the work behind. just ship a single breath. The course is not set yet. We players sail, we players sail, we players sail soon. All hands to KLRN Radio, setting sail for Treasure Island, March 2026!
For Treasure Island. All right, so let's get back to what we were doing a second ago before I had to do my little correction for my... I got really happy, dude. I put together a promo video for the play for like the first time ever, and then realized they said spring. I heard March, and then just never really felt like fixing it. But anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program, not me whining. Damn it, VC. Put things back the way you find them, sir. Just kidding.
Celebrity designer Jeff Lewis is back with Hollywood House Lift.
I'm excited to be working with new clients.
I'm not getting rid of that.
I hope I never see you both again.
An all-new season.
Those have to go. That has to go.
From oh, wow,
It's been an actual nightmare.
to oh, wow.
This is such an upgrade.
With celebrities like Josh Duhamel, Christina Ricci, and Gina Rodriguez.
Dazzle me, Jeff.
It looks like Chuck E. Cheese.
Stream an all-new season of Hollywood House Lift with Jeff Lewis. Now streaming on Freevee.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in and speak up and feel what we feel.
And welcome into the oh my god, it's Monday again edition of the Rick Robinson Show. We've got so much to cover. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of it, but we're going to try anyway. Before we get started, I do have to say a funny thing happened last night. So everybody knows about the new Universal Translator feature on X by now, I would assume. So it's made it really easy to speak with folks from all over the place because we can understand each other now in ways that we couldn't before. But every once in a while, the translator's still a little rough. So one of our Japanese bros tried to make a joke about Monday's coming, and because the translator handled it wrong, everybody was trying to figure out what he was talking about, because he's like, we've been invaded Monday, and they're coming for you soon too, or something is what the translator said. And everybody was like, so Japan's been invaded by what? Tourists? We deal with tourists all the time. And I'm like, no, that's just sloppy translation. He was trying to make the Monday's coming joke. Anyway, so we're here, we're live, and oh my God, it is Monday again. However, as BZ just pointed out in the chat, as he's often want to do, better than never having another Monday again, which does bring me to opening the show on kind of a sad note. For those of you who were fans of Starship Troopers, we lost somebody over the weekend. He played Austin Reed on Days of Our Lives as well. Patrick Muldoon passed away over the weekend at age 57, by the way. This is starting to hurt because I'm going to be 53 next month. And I'm like, dude is basically my age. And he croaked already. And let's not forget, I lost my younger brother back in November of last year. So yeah, this stuff's starting to become personal for me. Because I'm like, everybody that I know and everybody that I grew up watching is dropping like flies. And some of them are around my age. And it's starting to make me very, very nervous. But here we are anyway. All right, so we had to open with that, but good afternoon, and for those of you that are living in the future, and good morning for those of you that aren't. It's just a little bit before lunchtime here in God's time zone. For those of you on the East Coast, you're in the middle of your lunch break, most likely, if you're doing the whole 9 to 5 gig. So go ahead, take me to the break room. It's okay. Just when you come back, make sure you leave your earbuds in if you're still going to keep listening while you work, because this show is usually NSFW. So yeah, anyway. So anyway, we've got a lot of stuff to get into today. Because once again, everything old is new again. So Iran's back in the center of the conversation because this is what happens. And I'm not sure who I'm going to start blaming for this, but it's getting really annoying because every time Trump says, hey, we've made a deal and hey, we're going to do this and they've agreed, then we find out that they didn't agree. Now, I get it. Iran's command structure is very, very fractured. For the most part, it barely exists. They've got independent military cells acting on their own with the last orders from whichever leader we killed last or whatever the case may be. So it's going to be a while to get it all reined in, but there's some things popping off again. So before we get into all of that, we're going to go through this real quick, and then I've got some clips that I want to show you. But of course, Iran is back in the conversation, and not just because the Middle East is unstable. We've also got the media doing what the media has done for the better part of 10 years or more now, which is to take something Donald Trump says, strip out the context, assign the worst possible motive, and then act shocked when the public doesn't buy the spin anymore. We've also got open dysfunction in Congress over things they keep telling us are urgent, more fighting over election integrity and voter roll access, a major constitutional question hanging over the birthright citizenship case at the Supreme Court, and later on, we're going to have a couple of quick nerd detours because Blue Origin just did something kind of amazing. Yes, they copied Elon Musk, but it's still impressive. And for those of you that grew up when I did, watching shows like Knight Rider, we've got a little bit about that later in the show too, because there's a development that I found out this morning. I'm like, okay, we got to talk about this because I get to nerd out a little bit for a reason. So, of course, we have to start with the Iran story. So, Reuters is reporting shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is again near a standstill after Iran fired warning shots at the U.S. and the U.S. seized an Iranian cargo ship. Only 3 ships passed through in a 12-hour stretch Monday, compared with normal daily flow of around 130, and oil prices rose as the disruption deepened. Now, they're still not anywhere back where they were just the other day, but I did notice that they're back in the green again right before we went on air. I still don't know why they do that. I kind of feel like there should be kind of an area where the colors are swapped, because I get it with the Dow and all the stocks market stuff. When it goes up, it's green, it's good, it's golden. When it goes down, it's red because it's bad. But oil prices are kind of the opposite. So I never really have understood why they don't swap that around. But that's probably just my ADHD addled OCD style brain coming at me on all one working cylinder, which is how I feel today anyway. All right. So before we get too far into the story, let's watch this. Because the thing that I can't seem to understand is why Iran keeps wanting to play the FAFO game with us, and they seem to want to do that all the time. But here is our response to one of their latest rounds of FAFO. It's not a very long clip, so I may actually run it more than once. If it plays at all, and of course, no, it's not going to. I keep telling myself that I'm going to stop pulling stuff directly from the stories and actually go over to X, and then I never do, and then I'm mad because I don't, and then I'm cranky and rambling on air while I'm fixing the clip, but here we go. Oh, that's why I was like, why do I not have any sound? The sound's the best part. All right, here we go.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Okay, we gave the flare. Now we're getting be ready.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to...
All right, so an Iranian oil tanker tried to bust through the U.S. blockade. And the interesting thing about all that is now everybody's wondering what could have possibly been on the ship that led them to believe their best course of action was to just try to run it. Because this is what happened next. And I'm working on getting this queued up, so hang on. Because this is what happened next. Same ship, just a few minutes later. Now, of course, by now it had already been disabled. But here is the next round of FAFO happening in nearly real time during this exchange. All right, so now that I've shown you the clips, we're going to go through this and kind of break it down a little bit more. I like the video footage, so I wanted to run it. All right, so anyway, back to the first source we pulled from. One moment, please. So this is from by Strafe over at Red State. The U.S. Spruance lights up Iranian blockade runner in a formidable demonstration of the latest round of FAFO. So hours ago, the USS Spruance in an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer fired on and disabled the Iranian flag container ship MV Tosca. The Tosca was en route from Port Klang, Malaysia, destined for Chabahar, Iran. The ship encountered the U.S. Navy blockade line in the Arabian Sea and then decided to be retarded and play a nice little game of FAFO. And because they did, they made an ill-advised attempt to bull its way through. The captain probably hoped to impress his Islamic revolutionary masters with his contempt for the Kafar Navy that, according to leftists in the West, is illegally blockading Iran. Over a 6-hour period, the ship received multiple warnings to turn around and refuse them all. Okay, so I'm going to say this. 6 hours is too damn long. This is why they keep thinking they can run our shit, because we give them ample opportunities to turn around. If I got to talk to you for 6 hours, by the time I fire on you, I'm just going to sink you. I'm being honest. Look, I know that makes me a dick, makes me an asshole, whatever you want to call me. I don't care, because there comes a time when you got to start showing people this is our line. This is our stopping point. If you want to run at it, we're going to deal with it. And we've been doing an okay job of that, but we still are acting like we have to jump through all these hoops with these people. And I don't know why. But yeah, so that was that. And then if we go over to the other clip, so what happened after this, the ship was disabled, U.S. Marines depart amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli, the LHA-7 by helicopter in transit over the Arabian Sea to board the now seized, or board and seize the MV Tosca. The Marines repelled onto the Iranian flag vessel on April 19th when guided missile destroyer USS Spruce DDG-11 disabled Tosca's propulsion with the commercial ship because they failed to comply with repeated warnings from U.S. forces over a 6-hour period. So this raises a lot of questions, folks. Why didn't the ship just comply or turn around? You know, because that's what most of the other ships are doing. Why try to disregard the highly armed U.S. Navy for 6 hours? Kind of makes somebody think that maybe something interesting was on that particular container ship and that the Iranians wouldn't want us to know about it. Now, if there is, we probably won't find out for a few weeks. But yeah, from the fact that they were just, not doing the safe thing. And, yeah, but then comes the fun part. Because Iran has their own versions of Baghdad Bob, and they're all over X. This is from Iran International English on X. Iran's semi-official Mer News says U.S. forces opened fire on an Iranian merchant ship to force it back towards Iranian waters, but withdrew after IRGC naval units intervened, apparently contradicting remarks by President Trump earlier about the seizure of an Iranian vessel. And here we go again. Same account, different supposed news agency. IRGC affiliated Tiznimi claims Iranian forces attacked some U.S. military vessels with drones after American forces fired on Iranian commercial ships in the Sea of Oman. So here's a question. If the big bad Iranians scared us off, how exactly did we manage to seize the vessel? Yeah, we just showed you the ship was fired upon, the ship was boarded, and we have control of it now. So, yeah, welcome to the stupid when it comes to propaganda, because these people are just willing to sell any lie. And I guarantee you, even though I haven't really looked much yet, the leftist leaning media around here is probably lapping all of this crap up. All right. So anyway, we got to start there. But I do want to take one break because yesterday was the anniversary of April 19th, 1993. Some of you know what that was. Or no, I'm sorry, 96, not 93. Some of you know what that was. Anniversary of the Murrah bombing. Kind of a big deal. And somehow, for the first time in my adult life, it actually slipped past me. And then I woke up this morning, I was like, damn, it's April 20th. I almost forgot. So, yeah, I guess the old adage is true. Pain doesn't really ever go away, but eventually your memory fades because, you get old and start suffering from TRRS. But yeah, so what would that be? 93, 2003, 2013. I'm sorry, 96. 2006 is 10. 2016 will be 20. 30 years. God, I'm old. I'm old, dude, because I was, what was I, 23 when that happened? Good God. Anyway, God, I'm old. And I'm about to be 53 next month. Yes, you can visibly watch me twitch on air if you're looking at us on camera. I wouldn't advise it because I have warned you guys for years that I do have a face made for radio. So the first layer of everything that we've been discussing here is kind of straightforward. The administration's argument is that hard pressure is what moved a hostile regime at all. Reuters reports talks remain uncertain after the seizure, and the EU is now preparing to widen sanctions against people and entities involved in blocking navigation through Hormuz. That tells you this is not a symbolic fight. The world understands the leverage point because Hormuz carries roughly a fifth of global oil and LNG traffic. I'm going to read that again. Hormuz carries roughly a fifth of global oil and LNG traffic. So, from a logical perspective, knowing that we have had a country that hates us and wants us dead for the last 47 years, why in the last 47 years have we not done something to change the trajectory of our global oil? Because a fifth of it going through somewhere where terrorists and, dare I say, goat humping sheep herders can basically make the world suffer anytime they want on a whim. Why have we done nothing to change that? Better question is, why have their neighbors up until now done nothing to change that? Because now that we've stepped onto the scene, now that we're basically playing Team America World Police again, and I've told you before, this is not an angle that I like, but this is our mess. We made it. It started back in the 50s. So if there's any time that we need to step in as Team America World Police, this is going to be it. But why did it take us stepping in for the countries around Iran to start going, maybe we should make our own, canals, and maybe we should do this, and maybe we should open these pipelines that have been sitting dormant. Maybe we should do all of these things to make sure that Iran can't keep choking the life out of us at any given point just because they decide to. Why did it take us stepping in to make that possible? Because everybody keeps acting like they don't need us, but they don't do shit till we're there. They keep telling us how much they hate us. They keep telling us how much they don't need us, but they want our money and they want our military and they want it when they want it and they want it now. I feel like the entire world is in one of those "it's my money and I want it now" commercials from J.G. Wentworth or whatever the hell the case may be, until we turn around and start doing things that are not only in our interest but in theirs. And then half of them, because they've been overrun by a bunch of Muslims, are like, "You don't realize how hard you're about to make our life over here." We don't care. We don't care. You didn't care about us. You've used us since World War II and abused us since the end of World War II, and we've let you. We're not letting you anymore. So I'm sorry if our America First agenda is pissing you off. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, because like it or not, going after Iran and making sure that the largest sponsor of state terrorism is a parking lot is America First. How much of our military money could we be saving if we got rid or dealt with the biggest sponsor of state terrorism in the world? Now, I'm not saying once Iran goes away, there may not be some folks that try to come up and take their place, because there always is. Nature abhors a vacuum, so does politics. We talk about this all the time. But here's the thing. We still got to do it. This is our mess. We started poking around in their political system way back in the 50s when we got pissed off because they elected a socialist. And we weren't going down that road again. And just coming out of World War II, I can kind of understand that mindset, because everybody's like, oh, they basically just elected somebody that might become the next Hitler if we're not careful. We should probably do something about that. But the next layer in this is the one that gets into the point of why so many Americans, mostly folks that listen to shows like this, don't trust legacy media anymore. Because instead of asking the obvious policy question, whether deterrence works better than weakness against a regime like Iran, because we know that it does, because these people abhor weakness and they respect strength, and we keep trying to give them Western values. And we do this with pets too. We keep giving them characteristics that we assume they're like us. We anthropomorphize our pets all the time. We do this to Middle Eastern and even to a lesser degree Eastern cultures, because they're not the same as us. Yes, we all bleed red when we're cut. I get that. Our genetics are fairly close to the same. But our cultures and our values are and can be completely different. Because here we go. Because too much of the press instinctively wants to turn every Trump statement into a morality play, And that was the point of the Tapper-Stefanik exchange everybody was talking about over the weekend. Now, you can argue that Trump's rhetoric was too broad. Fair enough. President should know every phrase echoes worldwide. But there's a difference between saying the language was harsh and pretending the internet was genocidal. And I've got that clip here in just a minute. I just have to find it because I was busy doing other things and forgot to cue that one up. Where did you go? Maybe it was over here. I thought it was on Red State. Maybe it was the other one. All right. Well, we've got a breaking story I'll have to get to in a minute. I was looking to see if I could actually find that video exchange because I had the story earlier. I don't know where it went. Oh, there we go. I knew it was here somewhere. I just had to find it in my notes. Live radio, folks, and I am my own producer, so sometimes things do go a little silent here and there, but I do my best to try to avoid it. Just, it is Monday. Give me a break because it is Monday. All right, so here is the Stefanik exchange, but here we go.
Is calling for wiping out a civilization. Is calling for wiping out an entire civilization
the
bad or
Iranian
good?
terrorist regime.
But that's not what he said.
Of course it's bad. That is not what he is calling for. He wasn't calling for genocide.
Your entire civilization
it was targeted towards the Iranian terrorist regime.
All right.
It was targeted towards the Iranian terrorist regime.
Agree to disagree. The book
CNN. This is typical CNN.
Okay.
If you want to compare the President of the United States to the university presidents who failed to call for the condemnation of calling for the genocide of Jews, that's on you, Jake. The world saw how morally equivocating those university presidents were. Yes, you're the one that is it's not a comparison. So if you want to make that comparison,
you if you have the
that's
same
on
standard
CNN.
for somebody.
That is not the comparison. Of course, genocide is bad across the board, Jake. President Trump effectively brought the Iranians to the table. He effectively delivered a ceasefire, and he is going to effectively deliver peace to the Middle East to stop, frankly, the killing of the Iranian terrorist regime, which kills their own people and has created havoc across the Middle East.
All right, so I will admit the president did use kind of poor language in the post about your entire civilization is about to no longer exist. And there's a reason why the left pounced on it the way that they did. But everybody should know what he meant. And the fact that they're willing to give a potted plant break after break after break after break with everything that he said and did wrong during his single term, and not willing to even give this one a modicum. Great point, BZ. And I was actually about to make that very same thing. I don't really, it's that very same point, because I'll be honest, I don't really care what Trump says anymore, because Trump says crazy stuff. Remember, because in 2015, 2016, when he was saying all kinds of crazy stuff, that was the reason why I couldn't bring myself to vote for him the first time. And I was so disillusioned and so disenfranchised that I wound up, trying to help the Libertarian Party gain some traction. Even did my best to push getting them on the ballot here in Oklahoma because of how our election laws work. And I thought, hey, more choices, better idea. Then I figured out exactly how crazy the Libertarian Party has become and how much of a leftist lean they have now, which makes no sense to me, if I'm being honest. But I've also learned that what Trump says and what Trump does are often two very different things. And usually what he does works out to our betterment, even though, according to the media, what he says works to our detriment. So I, like BZ, just put in the chat, I don't really care what he says anymore. I care what he does. But so here's the thing, that the leap that Tapper was talking about only works if you erase the target, erase the diplomatic context, erase the pressure campaign, and pretend words exist in a vacuum. And that has been the media pattern with Trump basically since he stepped off the escalator. Take the roughest phrase, strip the context, assign the ugliest possible motive, repeat until the audience is supposed to comply. And yet, this tactic that they keep using keeps failing. I can't watching the media go after him. I feel like, you remember the scene from Star Trek 2 where Kirk is inside the Genesis moon thing and he's communicating with Khan and he's like, but you keep missing the target. If you want me, you're going to have to come down here. If you want me, you're going to have to come down here. Then he, of course, yells, Khan, after he says, well, I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. But yeah, I kind of feel like that's where Trump is with the media. They feel like they're Khan in the Wrath of Khan, and he's Kirk in the Wrath of Khan, and they feel like they're winning when in reality they're the ones losing. But the actual question is whether pressure moved Iran closer to the table. Right now, the answer appears to be that the pressure is real, the consequences are real, and the stakes are real enough that global markets, foreign governments, and insurers are all reacting. Reuters says war risk premiums rose from 2% to 3% of ship value after the latest flare-up, which, let's just face it, is another way for insurance companies to make more money. And that is where I think the media keeps missing, shall we say, missing the target. They are so eager to translate Trump into the worst possible caricature that they skip the more important question, did the pressure work? Because if the regime believed the threat, if the region reacted to the threat, and if talks moved because of the threat, then maybe the story is not just that Trump said something scary, because, you know, let's face it, Trump is big scary. Maybe the story is that deterrence still matters. Okay, so I think we've said enough about the Iran stuff itself, but this is where I have to remind you that it's not just about Iran anymore, because London might as well be Londonistan. Michigan might as well be Michiganistan, because it's happening everywhere. The leftist, everybody is just like us and everybody wants to be awesome like us mindset is destroying this country. But it's not by accident. I've said this before. This is all on purpose. This is all happening for a reason. And I've said this before. Ever since World War II, we started coming up with ways and ideas that we thought would make sure that there was never a World War III. Because we assumed that the next World War, if there ever was one, newsflash, we're in the middle of one right now. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to tell you that. But look at everything that's happening. We're basically in a world war right now. But of course, nobody wants to say that because then it becomes scary. And nobody wants to be scared anymore. But we assumed it was going to be nuclear. So we started doing everything that we could to make sure that that couldn't happen. They started the process to intertwine global economies. You want to know the real reason why we haven't knocked anybody back to the Stone Age since World War II? It's because if we punch too hard, every economy feels it. And they did that on purpose. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, they did that on purpose. But that is one of the primary reasons that we keep fighting things to stalemates. Not only that, but Americans, I said this on Saturday night, I'm going to say it again, and earmuffs for anybody with kids present in 3, 2, 1, Americans have become pussies. We don't have the grit anymore to do what is necessary. Everybody wants to pull the line from the Martin Lawrence show that was made popular shortly after Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? The problem is we can't. We can't get along with these people because they don't want to get along with us. They want to obliterate us. And as long as half of the country and what apparently seems to be most of the world doesn't want to let that point penetrate their cranium and their brainium, then we got a problem. Because they're not willing to see what's right in front of them. But if you think that's bad, in the next segment, we're coming home. And it's almost as bad here. Like I said, we got Dearbornistan. We got what, Minnesota that's basically become Islamist central. And then you've got Congress, who ain't doing shit. They ain't doing nothing. All right, so we're in the next segment, and right now I'm a little long, but I guess we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break because I just realized I need to take one. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Freedom Chat. If you haven't checked them out yet, I do encourage you to visit freedomchat.com. You can basically get the information on how to download their app for whatever version of phone you happen to have. If you've used things like WhatsApp and Signal, same general concept, but much cleaner usage. Also, there's a lot of safety features built in. Let's just say if the administration had been using Freedom Chat instead of Signal Chat in the early days, that whole Signalgate thing would not have ever happened. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we're going to play these things again, so stay tuned.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KL. And welcome back into the Oh My God, It's Monday again edition of the Rick Robinson Show, live right here on KLONradio.com. Don't forget, we have America Off the Rails coming up tonight as well. It looks like there will be no Edge of Liberty. Sean has a meeting at work because, damn it, his day job getting in the way of his fun job. Anyway, so it may just be me tonight as far as I know on our schedule. However, we're changing the format of Rails a little bit, and I'm going to start using it as more of a deep dive on a central topic. So we're going to be getting into this. So last night, I did the spiritual take on all the fraud and corruption that's happening in America. Tonight, we're going to be doing a deep dive take on all the fraud and corruption that's currently happening in America and how it's the guy who's supposedly destroying the country who has made it possible for us to figure out how broken everything is. And I would have asked Miss Rose to elucidate a little bit more about why she feels like Trump is destroying the country, but it looks like she dropped off while we were on break. She may or may not be back now. So if she feels like giving me some examples of how she feels like he's destroying the country, when in reality, he's the one helping us find out how much we've been stolen from for God knows how long, among other things, I'd be curious to know. But anyway, we're going to continue with the prepared portion of the show while we wait to see if we get any other feedback from the chats. But like I said, after the break, we were going to be doing that because reasons. This is bigger than just DHS funding. This is about all kinds of things because there's all kinds of things going on in the news. But before we get to that, we got to talk about this because coming back, before we get into this, I want to do a quick hit on a techie/nerdy news story because sometimes the future still does cool things. And then we'll get back into the point of the story so far. And that is this. And that is the fact that it looks like Blue Origin, and yes, I admit, Elon did it first for all of you that are going to be screaming that because I've already been seeing it happen online. But before we jump back into the political circus, let's do a little bit of space nerdy stuff. We're on the Artemis 2 high still. And I did actually do some research in that on Saturday night after we were done with the juxtaposition that wound up being more of kind of just a straight space nerdy show instead of the conspiratainment stuff that we usually do. But it was still a fun show anyway. But here's this. I didn't realize that the entire Artemis project has been completely revamped. Like apparently the idea of putting a lunar station in orbit isn't a thing anymore. Kind of sad about that, if I'm being honest. But we'll see what happens. But according to Reuters, Blue Origin successfully landed and reused the new Glenn booster on Sunday during the company's third New Glenn mission. That matters because reusable heavy lift boosters are where the economics of spaceflight really start to change. And Reuters noted before launch that a successful New Glenn 3 reuse would end SpaceX 9-year monopoly on orbital launch vehicle reusability. Now, because engineering likes to keep people humble, it wasn't a clean sweep for them. Clean sweep. Reuters says the upper stage underperformed and the AST space mobile communication satellite missed the correct orbit and will have to be deorbited. So this was one of those very honest space headlines where the answer is yes, that part was awesome, but also no, it didn't all work. Still, sticking the landing with a reused orbital class booster is the kind of thing that reminds you the future hasn't completely given up on us yet. All right, so back up to the dysfunction in DC, because anyway, this is bigger than just DHS funding. This is basically Congress falling asleep at the trough again, because this is about open dysfunction in a city that keeps demanding credit for urgency while behaving like everything is completely fine. Let's take the SAVE Act, for example. Reuters has reported in February that House Republicans passed the bill requiring proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote. I want to slow that part down. You're not going to have to prove your citizenship every time you vote. But if you move or have to change your registration, then you're going to have to verify your citizenship. And I don't really understand why this is such a big deal for people. As I pointed out, chief editor for Twitchy, one of the folks that I work for, and also a host around here who still helps out with some of the fun side projects. You may know her on X as at Politibunny, but her name's Sam Janney. So as an experiment, because she wasn't even born where she lives now. She's in Virginia. But just to see how difficult it would be, especially because she was in another state, she was able to obtain copies of all the necessary documents to verify that not only is she who she says she is, but that she is an American citizen for about, $20, and had it all within 5 business days. Now, there were varying degrees of delivery timetables, etc. in there, but she had everything in hand within 5 business days and spent about $20 to get it. Now, I'm not saying it's that way everywhere, but if it's not that way for you, that's not an us problem. That means that you need to start fighting with your state legislature to find out why they're allowing people to charge you so much for the crap that you need to be able to prove that you exist. Because you have to show an ID for almost everything. We should already have a way to verify citizenship. And I've said this before. If you really want to verify citizenship, they're automatically doing selective service registration now, which is only eligible to U.S. citizens who are currently male at 18 years of age or older. So open it to females. They keep saying they want to bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan. So, and a lot of females are going into the military, as much as I don't really think they should be. But hey, I'm a dinosaur. I get told this every day. I'm a dinosaur. I've outlived my usefulness. I don't fit with current society anymore. You know what? Looking at current society, I'm kind of glad I don't fit in. I'm okay with that. But I'm going to say this. If you want gender equality as much as you say you do, then one of the easiest ways to verify citizenship is selective service registration. Just saying. But again, the House did their job back in February. But of course, we then have the Senate. And if you think the House Republicans are squishy, good God. Yeah, the Republicans in the Senate, yeah, squishes of squishes of squishes. But yeah, so the idea to have to verify that you are a citizen to register to vote, but it immediately ran into the obvious Senate wall because it would need 60 votes to break a filibuster because they don't actually do true filibusters anymore. But I've got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. According to Senator Thune, even if they nuked the filibuster and did a straight up or down 51-49 vote, they ain't got him. That's coming from him, which means he can't do his job. So why is he leader of the Senate? If he can't whip his caucus to get behind something that 80% of America says that they want, which is to verify that only the people that are allowed to vote in federal elections are actually being allowed to vote in federal elections, what's the point? Why do we keep sending these people back to Congress? When are we going to decide enough is enough? What are we going to do that's different? Because we keep talking about the media, and I saw BZ mention this earlier, and I didn't have a chance to get to it until now, but it kind of ties into what I'm talking about. We talk about the mainstream media, the legacy media, or as I call them, the zombie media, because they have no brains left. And if you listen to them and watch them long enough, eventually you won't either. So not only are they zombies, they can turn you into one if you pay enough attention to them and don't try to get your news from multiple sources. Now, I'm not saying don't pay any attention to them at all. What I'm saying is watch their version of stuff, watch the right's version of stuff, watch the stuff that claims it's center leaning, and then form your own opinions. We used to do that all the time. I know that takes work, though, and everybody wants everything spoon-fed to them now. But here's the problem with all of this. These people are total squishes. And this goes back to the very same thing that BZ mentioned with the lamestream media just a minute ago. They keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Even though Congress is less popular poll-wise than a hooker with venereal disease, we keep sending our own individual Congress critters back because from our perspective, our guys are awesome. Their guys are the ones that suck. But if half the time, even our guys aren't willing to support the stuff that you say you want them to support, are they as awesome as we think they are? Because that's just it. We keep doing the same things over and over and over again by sending the same people back over and over and over again. And they keep doing the same things by campaigning and telling us, hey, if you give us power again, we're going to fix this. That's what we've heard ever since Biden is if we give the House and Senate back to Republicans, they'll be able to stop his craziness. Then we'll get a Republican president, and then we're going to fix what's broken. Here's a news flash, ladies and gentlemen. Your government can't ever fix what's broken, or you won't need them anymore. And they know it. If your government actually did its job as efficiently as it was supposed to, they would be home doing their regular jobs 80% of the time, just like they used to have to when they weren't being paid by Congress. And with technology the way that it is today, I think that's one way that we can fix this system. If they actually had to spend most of their time with their constituency, and I'm not talking about the paid agitator class, I'm talking about their actual constituency that are able to find them and say, hey, why aren't you doing these things? Instead of being in this little bubble, then in my opinion, things would be a hell of a lot better. But what do I know? But that's the pattern in Congress right now. The border is existential. Election integrity is existential. National security is existential. Everything is an existential crisis right up until the point where these people actually have to line up votes, pass a clean strategy, and accept the political cost of governing. Look at DHS. According to Reuters on April 2nd, that funding remains unresolved even after the Senate moved a bill because the enforcement side still was not clearly handled and the House had to decide what it was willing to do next. So even on that issue, Washington, the one they say matters most, sovereignty, border control, enforcement, Congress still managed to turn it into a muddled bargaining exercise instead of a clear governing choice. And if that weren't enough, Congress just did the same thing again with surveillance. We talked about this last week. I have not been a fan of FISA warrants ever since I found out how badly they have been abused and disabused by both sides. And yet we just did it again. So they just did the same thing on surveillance. According to Reuters on April 17th, lawmakers failed to agree to a long-term extension on FISA, Section 702, the reauthorization, and had to settle for a short-term extension through April 30th. Why are we extending it at all? Look, I told you guys, I try to call balls and strikes as much as I can. This is one thing that I disagree with Trump big time on. Because, and this has happened before, because in his first term, when he was running for president, he was against FISA. Then he became president. Then he liked FISA. Then he lost. Then they started using FISA against him, and he pointed out all the different ways that they were using FISA against him, and he hated it. Now he's president again, and he likes it again. I want consistency. And if you're going to do a 180 on something not once but twice, you need to start explaining to people why it is that your take is different now than it was before you were in office, especially because you've been in that office before. So you were against it, then you were for it, then you were against it. Now you're for it again, now that you're back in office. So what's changed? And I get right now, they're like, well, we're dealing with terrorism, so we need that. Do we though? Do we really? Do we really? Because we've seen how badly it's been abused. Let's not forget, Biden used it to put half of us on watch list in one form or another because of the letter behind our names on our voter registrations. Because remember, according to Joe Biden, flanked by Marines, flooded by red lights draped against American flags, he pointed out that half the country, or MAGA Republicans, were basically no better than modern day terrorists. Anyway, so they didn't fix it. They didn't get rid of it. They just punted again. So we'll see what happens. And that's the scam in Washington, isn't it, though? Declare a crisis at the podium, then treat the solution like a line item in a poker game. At some point, the public stops hearing principle and starts hearing performative, because it is. Because when Congress cannot move cleanly on the border and cleanly on an election fight, and aligning our election integrity priorities, then here's my thing, right? Look, if the left's intention is none of this ever happens, why does it matter if we try to fix it? If it's not broken, according to you guys, but it's broken according to us, then let's pass the things to fix it from our perspective so that we feel more secure in our elections. You guys supposedly feel more secure in our elections, and then we can be comfortable with the results and not keep going, well, how many people voted in this election that weren't supposed to? Or how many issues were there in places like Georgia where there were 315,000 ballots where they couldn't verify chain of custody anymore, but they still counted them anyway? And I know that seems like a procedural on paper kind of thing, but there's a reason why in a court of law, if chain of custody cannot be verified, evidence cannot be used. There's a reason that is very stringent. The fact that it's not the same for our elections is kind of crazy to me, but here we are. All right, so I told you guys I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to get through everything. I honestly don't think we're going to be able to, because I've just now gotten through the first half of what was supposed to be hour one. Did I tell you my shows were becoming more data intensive lately? Anyway, all right, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll keep things going. I'll try to get through as much of it as I can. My name is Rick Robinson. You're listening to my show right here live on KLRnradio.com. Don't forget, this one is noon to 2 Eastern time, 11 to 1 in God's time zone. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday Eastern. On Tuesday nights, we do Men Explained Poorly. Wednesday nights, I'm here till about 2 in the morning. Thursdays, usually Jen and Rick at 10 p.m. Eastern, and every other Thursday night, I'm running the boards for Disasters in the Making. I will be off this Thursday, though, because we're doing my brother's internment. But we'll get to the rest of the show when we come back, so stay tuned.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLR.
Lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the rigging soon. Aye, your hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true. We speak the words, we wear the scars, we make the old world new. No gold without the work behind, no legend without sweat. A stage, a ship, a single breath. The course is not set yet. We players sail, we players sail.
And then we'll kick the show back off.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what
It's not impossible.
like.
Just listen to
That
us.
is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Why, yes, my chair dancing style is in fact inspired by Kermit the Frog.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol.
All right, as much as I usually like to let that play a little bit longer, we got lots of stuff to get through, and we only got an hour left to get there. So let's see how much of this we can chew through, because I got a lot. Now, the good news is, whatever we don't get to today, we'll just pick up and rethread on Wednesday, depending on updates. So it's not like you won't get all the information, because I'm sure a lot of this stuff's still going to be in the news. But we got to keep things rolling. All right, so my name is Rick Robinson. I am the general manager, KLRNradio.com. Hope everybody's enjoying your Monday as much as you possibly can. In fact, enjoy the dreaded Monday, but here we are. All right, so back into the breach, my friends. Once more onto the breach. All right, so now we get into the rest of the congressional dysfunction. We've touched on it a little bit, but as Reuters reported on April 19th, Michigan rejected a Trump DOJ demand for 2024 election ballots and related materials, especially from Wayne County, while the federal government has filed lawsuits against 29 states and D.C. seeking voter records. Reuters also reported courts have already pushed back on some of those efforts, including a Rhode Island ruling denying a DOJ request for sensitive voter data. Now, as always happens, this is going to give both sides talking points, and I'm sure they're going to use them to the best of their ability. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Critics say this is a fishing expedition. The administration says clean voter rolls and transparency are basic election hygiene. I happen to agree with the administration, but I know that's a stretch, right? And the honest way to discuss it is this: public confidence does not improve when maintenance, access, and record-keeping questions are treated like they are somehow illegitimate by definition. At the same time, if the DOJ is going to make broad demands, it had better have a strong legal basis and a clear explanation, because courts are already telling the department that some of these asks go too far. For these folks, that part is also real, but I want to give a little bit of pushback there to the tool that I use to help organize my notes, because we have a strong legal basis. I know they keep trying to tell you that we don't, but we have a strong legal basis, and I'm going to tell you what that is. The strong legal basis is this: where did 11 million voters go between 2020 and 2024? Was there a rapture and only 11 million people went and nobody told us? Did they ever exist in the first place? Were they data ghosts? Where did they go? Because let's not forget, the election was basically the same. They thought, remember Nancy Pelosi, that in her words, in that state, meaning New York, we could put D on a glass of water and run it and it would win. That was when, AOC was getting a little mouthy with her own side. Way back in the day. But that's honestly what they thought, because since Hitler, oh my God, literally Hitler reincarnated, the next evolution of the Nazi party was back on the ballot for the Republican side. They thought anybody with a D next to their name could win, because they pulled it off in 20. But they pulled it off in 20 with a lot of shady things that only part have been discovered. But enough have been discovered that now people are questioning, if nothing else, the fact that Biden carried Georgia, which I don't know. I don't remember what the Electoral College breakdown was. I don't know if that would have made enough of a difference or not. I haven't done the math. I don't really care anymore, because there's no way to undo it anyway. But you know what it also proves? With the amount that Warnock won by, with those 315,000 questionable votes being counted, he would have lost. Because in order for that to come out the way that it did, almost all of those votes probably would have had to have been for him. And remember, we watched this stuff in real time. They're telling us not to believe what we saw with our own eyes. 2020, I was still working for the University of Oklahoma. I hadn't started doing this full time yet. But it was also, remember, March of 2020 was when everybody pretty much, unless you were considered essential, was sent home for 2 weeks. We were considered essential, so they sent us home and then told us we were going to get to do something we were told would never happen, and that was work from home for 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, we started a morning show, because I live in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't want to get used to being able to roll out of bed and log in at 8:30 in the morning, do my job, and just leave my studio set up, because the computers for both were in the same place, and then go on about the rest of my day. So we started doing a morning show. Well, 2 weeks became years. As a matter of fact, when I left almost 3 years ago, has it really already been? Yeah, it is almost 3 years. Jeez. Yeah. Well, interesting. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. But anyway, when I left almost 3 years ago, it'll be 3 years ago in September, we were still working from home, and for the most part, they still are. But because we were doing the morning show and we were doing election coverage that night, when everybody started taking their ball and going home, because they did, and they were, when everybody started taking their ball and going home, then we shut things down. I think it was about 12:15 my time, around 1:15 Eastern time. And everybody was like, yeah, counting will probably resume around 8 or 9 Eastern time tomorrow. We'll be back around with it then. So we decided to call it, and we took the night off. We took the night off. The rest of it anyway. So then I got up at like 4 in the morning to start doing morning show prep. And then I started seeing all these things that I've never seen before. So remember, they stopped counting because there were technical issues. There was water main breaks. There were all these different things. And they said it was going to be mid-morning probably, or, for those of us that get up super early, 9 is mid-morning. And I am one of those people because I rarely sleep anyway. And then I get up and start seeing all these stories about truckloads of ballots showing up at 2 and 3 in the morning. And windows being papered over or shades being drawn as they started counting them. And all these reports of ballots that were president only, nothing else filled in. And Trump was in a solid lead when I went to sleep. A few hours later, no, seriously, I'm talking about 3-hour nap. 3-hour nap. And the entire trajectory of the election had changed in 3 hours. And then, because we started trying to talk about it, we got throttled. And throttled and throttled and throttled. Content was pulled down anytime we tried to tell the truth about what was going on with COVID, because there were cheap things that would work. And we were able to tell you that for 5 minutes. Then we started talking about all the weird stuff that happened with the elections. And then we got buried. It has taken me 6 years to dig back out from underneath that. And now they're trying it again. Shows like this one used to get 500-600 hits on one platform. Now I'm lucky if I get 600 across all of them. And we stream a lot of places on purpose because we're trying to cast as wide of a net as possible. And it's not because of the things it's not because the presentation or anything else, because I'm going to be honest, I don't toot my own horn very much, but I see shows that are way worse than the ones that we produce and the groups that I work with that have hundreds of thousands of views. And I'm like, okay, so that's obviously not the problem. So what is the problem? But the problem is we're touching on things that people don't want us touching about talking about. Because the truth of the matter is, we now have all of the evidence that we need that something shady of some kind happened in 2020, and you can see the difference between the numbers in 2020 and 2024. What was one of the main differences between 2020 and 2024? A lot of places started rolling back their COVID voting policies and started changing how their mail-in ballots worked unless they were blue states. Which is why things were a lot different between 2020 and 2024. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about today that honestly pisses me off, because I don't even know why this is still a thing. Because I'm not going to oversell any of this stuff because it's politically convenient, or I'm not going to say this is clean rolls, lawful transparency, and public trust are not fringe concerns, because they're not. They're part of whether people believe the system deserves confidence at all. And let's face it, I'm going to say this again. If you guys really think there's nothing wrong, then what is the harm in passing this so that half the country feels more comfortable about our elections? Because according to you, it shouldn't make any difference. So why are you fighting so hard to keep these changes from being implemented if you believe they won't make a difference? And let's not talk about it being Jim Crow 2.0, because at this point y'all should be at Jim Crow 14.0 anyway, because everything the Republicans have ever proposed for as long as I've been doing this, going on now 17, 18 years, has been Jim Crow 2.0. But this will take us directly into the Supreme Court fight, because once again, the biggest question may not be the headline question. Birthright citizenship. So as we know, this was an argument that was brought up recently. So one of the most important things about the birthright citizenship case is that the real question may not be whether Trump wins, and maybe how he loses if he loses. Solicitor General D. John Sauer argued on April 1st that automatic birthright citizenship acts as a pull factor for illegal immigrations and cheapens the meaning of American citizenship. And he's not wrong. I'm going to put this into perspective for you guys. The wife or mistress of Xi Jinping could come to America, plop a baby out, and get dual citizenship and then go home. Guess what that means? 35 years later, he could come back and run for president. Or she could come back and run for president. That's why this matters, because this was originally intended as a way to do away with the 3/5 clause. This gave people that were slaves who were freed full citizenship, meaning the right to be counted in censuses. Unfortunately, also eventually became the right to be taxed. Taxation is theft. Just saying. I know it's April 20th. We're not supposed to talk about that anymore. But yes, taxation is theft. Here's why all this matters, because according to the media, and Reuters specifically is reporting that several justices, including Barrett and Roberts, sounded skeptical of the administration's efforts to limit birthright citizenship by executive order. Now, here's why that matters. There's a huge difference between the court saying, no, the president cannot do this by executive order, and the court saying no one can touch this issue at all because the 14th Amendment settles it in the broadest possible way forever. Those are not the same thing. In the first case, Trump loses, but here's the laughable part. Congress could still have room to legislate around loopholes, residency requirements, or abuses like birth tourism. In the second case, the court could effectively shut the door on almost any political solution going forward. That is the distinction worth watching. So the court skepticism is real. That has to be acknowledged. But the shape of the ruling will tell us whether this remains a live issue for the elected branches or becomes something the judiciary walls off almost completely. And I'll be honest, I don't know how this is going to go, because there have been times when I have expected Roberts, because he's always been considered to be an originalist, to rule a certain way on things, and he has not. So, and that's the other thing. When every branch of government is lined up against you, except for the guy at the top, what the hell are you supposed to do? I mean, am I the only one? And trust me, I understand how weird this sounds because I do this for a living and I talk about this stuff all the time and I research it all the time and I live in it all the time. But am I the only one getting completely disillusioned by the fact that we keep doing what we think we're supposed to do to make things better, and really in the short term and sometimes even in the long term, not very many things actually get that much better? Just me. I mean, it's fine if it's just me. But, back to this story. This is when the legal class sometimes loses the public. They frame everything like a binary morality play. But serious legal analysis is both the width of the ruling, not just the headline result. So, yeah, fun times. So, getting back into the federal government nightmare, according to Reuters again on April 12th, the FTC was in settlement talks with major ad companies over whether they violated antitrust laws by coordinating boycotts against platforms, including X. And that matters because for years, the public was told this was all just private choice and normal market behavior. But for those of you that have been listening to shows like this one, you know that's not true, because we've been telling you for years there have been thumbs on scales. The Biden administration had private back channels with almost every social media company, almost every media outlet, and said, no, you're not going to talk about this. You're not going to talk about this. You're not going to talk about this. You're not going to let your users talk about this. And they especially when Dorsey was in charge of X, oh boy, it was bad. I'm not saying it's much better now, because the scariest thing about Elon Musk is he can make a rocket sit up and beg and catch one coming back with chopsticks, but he can't seem to make a social media platform that doesn't involve algorithms. My question, and one that I've asked for a long time, is why do we even need algorithms? Social media has our ability to curate whatever we want to see or don't want to see. We have mute features. We have block features. We have, even on Facebook, even if you don't want to unfollow somebody or unfriend them, you have a mute for this amount of time feature so that you don't have to see them in your feed every day. We have ways to curate our own experiences. Start treating us like adults. And we're going to get into, before we take the break here in just a minute, a company that does that, which is another friend of the program. But so here's why all this matters, because for years the public was told this was just private choice and normal market behavior, like we said a second ago. If one company decides it does not want to advertise somewhere, that is one thing, and it is their right. If a cluster of powerful firms move together in a way that regulators believe may amount to coordinated pressure against politically disfavored speech, that is something else entirely. Now, the settlement talks are not proof of any allegations, but the probe itself tells you this is bigger than social media whining. It is about whether corporate power and speech control are working together under the respectable label of brand safety. That is a market issue, a speech issue, and a trust issue. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come, well, actually, before we take the break, let me talk to you about our friends over at Pickaxe. I know it's kind of a weird sounding name, but it is basically a social media site that lets you control your feed, which is amazing because almost none of them do that anymore. Even the ones that tell you they do will eventually integrate some sort of an algorithm to help with their work. Pickaxe doesn't believe in algorithms. I do encourage you to check them out. They have officially launched apps in both stores, and you can download them for free today. If you're a content creator, it's one of the best places to put your stuff because you get a lot of interactions, and they also have multiple ways to eventually help you get paid as you start growing your following. And if you're not a content creator and just want to be able to actually see the things from the folks that you follow and interact with the folks that you follow, it's still the best platform to use because there's nothing getting in your way from seeing the folks that you follow and being able to interact with them. As a test, just a couple of weeks ago, I put the same post on X, where I have almost 13,000 followers, and the same post on Pickaxe, where I have maybe 60 right now because I haven't been over there that much. I had as much communication, replies, reposts, etc. And I know that's not the language that they use over there, but just to make it easy, it's kind of the same stuff as I did with a 60 follower account on Pickaxe than I did with almost a 13,000 follower account on X. I should tell you something. All right, so when we come back, remember I told you there was going to be that whole nerdy thing, a couple of nerdy things today. I found something else that's really, really cool, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. Now, for this one, this is a new song that got put together for last night's show. It is Christian, so for those of you that'll be offended, yeah, you can turn away in just a second. But this is from Proof Unseen, which is one of the groups with Kung Fu Rick Productions. But here we go.
No matter what it takes, dress it up in polished words and pretty shades. Call it prudence, call it power, call it being wise. Had a crooked heart behind respectable smiles. Man says if it works, then let it stand. Trade a little truth to keep the upper hand. Got the name, protect the game, sell the soul and still somehow call it gain. But heaven does not grade us by the gold. God is not deceived by what we hold. Man sees profit, God sees chains. Man loves comfort, God weighs names. Man builds altars out of fear and calls it fake. God still hates dishonest scales. Man says take it, God says wait. You can't serve both God and man in one way. God sees what became. Man says everybody plays this way. Just survive the cycle, live to win the day. Spin the story, move the numbers, blur the line. If the crowd still cheers, then everything is fine. God says, what does it profit in the end if you buy the whole world but your heart won't mend? What is victory if the measure has been bent? What is plenty if the peace of God is spent? The Lord still searches what we love the most. Not just the words we shout, but what we chose. Man sees profit, God sees chains. Man loves comfort, God weighs names. Man builds altars out of fear and calls it fate. God still hates dishonest scales. Man says take it, God says wait. You can't serve both God and mammon, one will reign. What the world calls wise may devour your soul. Man sees gain, but God sees what became. Honest measure, honest hands. Heaven knows what truth still stands. Not the mass, not the spin, not the throne of appetite. Not the deal made in the dark, just to sell your soul to thrive. If greed is worship, tear it down. If mammon speaks, don't bow down. Some things are too sacred to be sold. Truth trusts the soul. Man sees profit, God sees chains. Man loves power, God knows names. Man will crown the appetite and call it strength. God will judge the hidden weight. Man says bend it, God says straight. You can't serve both Christ and Mammon, choose today. What the world calls blessing may just be a different name for the price you pay. Man sees gain, God sees the grave. Different scales, different eyes. Man counts dollars, God counts lives. Different scales, different tone. Game can't save, just God alone.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of the Oh My God, It's Monday Again edition of the Rick Robinson Show. Don't forget, I'll be back live tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern for America Off the Rails. Now reformatted to be more of a deep dive on a singular topic now that I do this one more often. And for tonight, so if you missed last night's Kingdom and Country, we did a spiritual look at all the fraud and corruption that's being uncovered in our country and why it may be such a big thing that's starting to happen. So if you missed that, you can go back and check it out on any of your favorite podcatchers. Just look for either KLRN Radio or Kingdom and Country. Should pop up almost anywhere you get your podcasts. As a matter of fact, if you see anywhere where you get podcasts from and it isn't there, shoot me an email at rick@klrnradio.com and I will see if I can fix that for you. However, tonight, so we did the spiritual side of it last night. Tonight, we're going to be doing the political side of it and all the different things that are coming to light, all the things they kept telling us were never happening, the billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud and voter issues and everything else, all the things the left keeps telling us aren't actually real. Speaking of the left, they're in a bit of a panic right now, especially Ilhan Omar, because apparently as the fraud scandal continues to deepen in Minnesota, Kash Patel ain't letting anybody off the hook, and he's about to start doing some major investigations, and apparently he is starting the process to pursue lawsuits over the frauds as for the fraud cases as well. And that's not all of it. So this is from Jeff Charles. Remember we were just talking about the 2020 election just a minute ago? Now, look, you can say what you want about Kash Patel. I was lukewarm on him at first, and I feel like it's taken him a while to get off the runway. But now that he's starting to get off the runway, if he does half of what he says he's going to do, things are going to be better. Now, whether he actually does half of what he says he's going to do is yet another question. But according to FBI Director Kash Patel, the Bureau has found evidence supporting President Donald Trump's assertion that the 2020 election was rigged and that arrests could come as soon as this week. So, I'll be curious to see if that happens. The FBI has been investigating the details surrounding the 2020 race and has conducted a search of an election office in Fulton County, Georgia. Remember, that's the one I was telling you that had the 315,000 votes that they couldn't verify chain of custody for. So the Justice Department is also demanding ballots and other election materials from Wayne County in Michigan. During an appearance on Fox News, Patel said Democrats not only personally attacked the President of the United States and President of the office of the President of the United States and President Trump, but tried to thwart our elections and rig the entire system. He continued, that is something that is going to stop on my watch. It is not something that I'm going to allow on my watch. You have to remember, they built these deep state temples over 20 or 30 years. The FBI director further stated, we've got all the information we need and that we are going to be making arrests, and it's coming. I promise you it is coming soon. All right, so we're going to go ahead and play the clip just so you can hear it in his own words. And then, I don't know, he said as soon as this week, potentially. So I guess we can hold him to that, and we'll see if we get any updates. And of course, if we do, I will definitely bring them to you. Okay, so X is being crazy for the moment. So let me try something. Maybe I can still make it work from the article, hopefully. It's not going to be pretty because I'm going to have to do this manually, but we'll see if we can make this work. Hang on. Crap, hang on. I just realized it's not playing. You guys can see it, but you can't hear it. 1 second. Like I said, this is going to get sloppy, but I'll fix it. Wait, am I not going now either? Okay, there I go. Okay, I was starting to panic. I'm like, everything's being weird. I'm panicking a little bit because I just had my router replaced and things have been a little cranky since then. So I'm like, is everything working the way it's supposed to? All right, so hopefully you guys will get to actually hear this now instead of just see it. I mean, I know I read it already, but still, I wanted you guys to hear it in his words, not mine.
We are not going to take this and have not taken this laying down. We did already indict former Director Comey, and that's going through the judicial process. But we also, at this FBI, even though we uncovered what we uncovered back in the House Intel days, I had to come in here and find rooms that they hid from the world. I had to come in here and find access on our computer systems in restricted and prohibited case files that they purposely put in places for no one to see and find. We have found all this information. We are working with our Department of Justice partners, and I am never going to let this go because they not only have personally attacked the presidency of the United States and President Trump, but they tried to thwart our elections and rig the entire system. And that is not something that is going to stop. That is not something I'm going to allow on my watch. Right. But you just have to remember, they built this disease temple over 20 and 30 years. We've got all the evidence. I can announce on your show that we've got all the information we need. We're working with our prosecutors at the Department of Justice and their Attorney General Todd Blanche, and we are going to be making arrests, and it's coming, and I promise you, It's coming soon.
Well, Cash, hold on, because when you started this interview, you said, Maria, you and I have been working together for a long time, and this is exactly what you were referring to. You were on my show repeatedly talking about the Russia collusion story, and
All right, so there you have it from his own words, everything that they've uncovered, everything that he's found along the way, and everything that tells you pretty much everything that I've been trying to say for the last few years. There was a lot of hinky stuff that went on in 2020. But I'm going to say this again. As mad as I am about all of that, one, there's no system to undo an election once it's been certified. We don't have anything like that. Remember, the left was just screaming about that too because they feel like Elon Musk and Donald Trump were the ones that stole the election in 24. Never mind the fact that we pretty much saw with our own eyes that they stole one in 2020. And I know I'm probably going to get throttled again for saying it. I don't care anymore because, you know, the evidence is there. The numbers are there. But look, he said it himself. I found all kinds of things from the second that I set foot in the FBI office. All kinds of things that weren't supposed to be there. Information that was being hidden, squared away, compartmentalized that was never supposed to be compartmentalized. But he's telling us now, and again, like BZ, I'm not necessarily going to hold my breath. He's telling us now that he's actually going to try to do something about it. Now, whether the system, because again, this is the important part, and he touched on this, and I think there's a reason why he did. They have built the system up, and he's saying within the last 20, 30 years, this has been a 100-year push, ladies and gentlemen, by the socialists in this country. And nobody wants to talk about that part. This has been going on for over 100 years. This has been a slow, steady, incremental push to the point where now they're just starting to crop up all over the place and they're not even hiding it anymore. Mamdani, even though now he's been governing for 90 days-ish, I think, somewhere around there, maybe. I don't remember exactly when he got sworn in. But even him, after running into budget issue after budget issue after budget issue, is still doubling down on all the socialist utopia crap. Look, as much as I really look, you have to remember, I'm a kid who grew up watching things like Star Trek. But at the same time, I also understand that if we're ever going to be able to find that kind of society, and I don't know if we will, to be honest, we ain't there yet because there's too many people that are still looking for ways to maintain power and control, not do what's best for us. And that's the problem. The Federation in Roddenberry's universe is presented as this selfless group of people that always do the right thing for the right reasons and dedicate themselves to service because they don't need to worry about having a paycheck anymore. Because the Federation takes care of everything for them. The problem is in practice, that never works because when people start basically having to work just for the sake of working and propping up the state, eventually what happens is less and less people contribute, and the people that are still contributing get mad because they're the only ones contributing, and then eventually everything just kind of dies off and starts over. This is why communism and socialism never actually work, and I don't want to hear any of this. Well, it's never actually been tried for real. Yeah, actually it has. One of the very first pilgrim settlements, which was small by all accounts, because that's the other thing. Everybody, and I used to say this too, communism sounds fine on paper and might even work in small groups. However, as one of the first pilgrim colonies has led us to understand, if we actually pay attention to history, didn't really work very well for them, probably still won't work very, very well now. But yeah, so I guess we'll see. Like I said, we're going to put Cash on a clock. He did say that there should be arrest hopefully later this week, so we'll see. All right, so it's not going to let me put this up on X, which I was trying to do because for some reason X is being really dumb. So I don't even know if you guys are still chatting from X, so I know it's working, but for some reason it's not loading very well from my computer, and I don't really know why. At least when I try to pull in the different articles. It's working now again, but I'm not going to mess with it. All right, so here is some number data that your leftist friends don't want you to know, and I'm going to go ahead and explain this to you since you may not be able to see it very well. So this is from Secretary Doug Burgum, because DC has put out some crazy crime numbers because guess what? Crime is down in the swamp dramatically, a fact that Doug Burgum applauded today. And according to him on his X account, the results speak for themselves. Thank you, POTUS and U.S. Park Police, for all you're doing to keep DC safe and beautiful. 2026 year-to-date DC crime comparison. Homicide is down 52%, robbery down 23%, motor vehicle theft down 56%, and burglary is down 21%. Now, I know what you're about to say. Well, the leftists were putting out these same kind of numbers when they were in charge, so how do we know they're not just cooking the books? Because our folks would be fact-checking the hell out of it if that were true. So the number of homicides in Washington, D.C. has dropped sharply after President Donald Trump sent the National Guard to clean up the city in August of 2025. There have been 20 homicides in 2026 so far in the nation's capital. Remember, by now, there usually would have been somewhere between probably 40 and 42, because that's a 52% drop. Because, again, there were 42 homicides recorded in the same time period of 2025, according to DC police statistics. And I guarantee you those numbers were probably cooked a little bit, too. In all of 2025, the city recorded a total of 127 homicides. The city also recorded 187 homicides in 2024. But it's not just homicides. Look at the overall crime numbers. We went over those a moment ago. Data shows that many categories of violent crime have plunged as of 4 months into 2026. Homicides are down 52%. Sex abuse is down 48%. Robbery is down 23%. And motor vehicle theft is down 56%. And all crime is down a total of 25% since Donald Trump used the National Guard as an interdiction force. And that's basically what he did. Now, here's the thing about all this. The leftists wanted you to think this was going to be terrible. It was going to be terrible, horrible, no good, very bad news. And it was, but it's terrible, horrible, no good, very, very bad news for them. Because when and before Donald Trump decided to send in the National Guard, you had actual leftist-leaning media figures reporting on national news stages that they were carjacked and live and work in D.C. So I want to point that out, because it was after these stories started breaking where leftists were like, this place has become terrible. Donald Trump actually did something about it. And the leftists still hate him. You know, as Mike Miller from Red State points out all the time, there seem to be two variants of TDS. There's TDS type 2, and then there's TDS type 3. TDS type 2 is the man can't do anything right, no matter what it is. TDS 3 is the man can do no wrong. And I know a lot of folks are that way. And I know sometimes it may seem like I come across that way because I forgive a lot of what he says, because I normally pay attention to what he does. Because that's what I had to do the last time. Remember, the first election, I didn't vote for him at all. I couldn't bring myself to do it. But then I watched everything that he was doing. All the things that he said he was going to do, for the most part, he at least tried to do. There were some big ticket items that he didn't get to, but that was, again, for first term, him trusting the swamp in D.C., some people that were already embedded there, not realizing that there were mid-level folks in D.C. that were already given marching orders to fight him at every turn because he was illegitimate and never should have been president, and they were going to do everything they could to make sure that he couldn't accomplish anything. Now, part of that was fed by the Russia collusion hoax. Here's some interesting news. Apparently, Donald Trump is appointing somebody to get to the bottom of that crap, so that hopefully something like that never happens again. We'll see what comes from that as well. All right, so as we get ready to close out the show, I told you guys I had at least one more fun topic that I wanted to get to, and we're going to do that now. I'm not going to play this whole thing because it lasts forever, but I am going to let it play long enough for him to explain to you what he's done and let you see it. And if you grew up when I grew up, you've been dreaming about this for a very long time. And all I will say is, if they integrate a watch communicator and the Tesla drive system, I will be a happy kid. But here we go.
Built a Knight Rider replica, and I'm developing an AI system for it.
This is not just another AI chatbot. This is a whole nother world. For example, Kit can actually use the internet to perform data access maneuvers in order to find addresses, phone numbers, names, websites, and information, and then display those on the monitor for you, just like in the show.
I found
found several appealing dining establishments nearby. I will display the restaurants, which include the Vineyard, Arthur's, and Dexter's.
Kit knows his exact GPS coordinates at all times, and he can generate images on command.
I started posting videos about it online and got a lot of traction. A lot of other folks were saying, hey, can I have that too? And long story short, it turned into a product. And so that's where we are today.
Levi, it's great to see you.
Hey, well, it's great to be here, Michael. So glad to join you.
So you're a Knight Rider fan, obviously. I'm assuming so. You put a lot of work into a system here. I'm assuming that you've at least seen a couple episodes.
I built a Knight Rider replica, and I'm developing an AI system for it. So you would hope I would be a fan, at least.
What did you like about the show?
Well, I've been watching the show for pretty much as long as I can remember. It used to be on the Sci-Fi channel. They were doing reruns because I grew up in the mid-'90s, and so that I was growing up after the show aired. And I was just absolutely mesmerized by the whole idea of a talking car that could drive itself and had personality and all that. I turned all of my toy cars into Knight Rider toys. I turned, my go-kart that we had on the farm into a Knight Rider car, and just trying to just pretend that I was Michael Knight, essentially. And so it's always was my dream to build a replica. And so I ended up doing that eventually and just finished it recently. And a couple of years ago, I was, obviously watching the developments with AI and all the buzz that has been about it. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way to try to utilize some of this technology and do something really fun with it for my replica. And so that's where some of the software development started. And then I started posting videos about it online and got a lot of traction. A lot of other folks were saying, hey, can I have that too? And long story short, it turned into a product. And so that's where we are today.
Yeah, I saw you on TikTok, and a lot of people were sending me your videos too. I had already seen you, of course, and followed. And they were like, you need to talk to this guy because he's got a really cool system. Is your background in software development, or did you have to kind of figure that out as you go?
Well, so I'm my day job is a college professor. So I teach at a college. You can kind of tell that by my background here, as I have my library behind me in my office. But I've always been involved as a side hustle in software development. So I learned my first scripting languages back in high school. So I was learning C++ and C# and things like that, and then eventually Python and HTML and things like that. So I've always been tinkering, always been developing, building things, games, little apps, stuff like that. And so I've never done it as a full-time job, but it feels like a second full-time job if it were.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about your Knight Rider replica. So did you buy, how did you do it? Like for me, I cheated. I'm not a builder at all. I found a car that was, the exterior was done on an auction site. I bid on it, didn't think I was going to win. And then 3 days later from Florida, it showed up in my house. And I'm still like, I go out there and I see it. And I'm like, feel like I'm in a GTA lobby like this. I shouldn't have this car, but it felt a tangible goal because we had a guy here a couple of years ago who did the same thing. He found a Trans Am in Oklahoma. It didn't work very well. He towed it. He got all the work done to it. He had it painted, and now it's a working Knight Rider replica. What was your story? How did you find it? What did you do? How much work did you put into it? That kind of thing.
It's a great question. So I found my car in Wisconsin, and it had an interesting story. So it was not a Knight Rider car at all. It was just a normal Trans Am, nothing Knight Rider about it at all. And the second owner was the one that I bought it from. The first owner had bought it new and left it in a garage because he had died a few years later. And
all right, so that's where we're going to leave that. If you guys want to go check that out, you can actually go find this on YouTube if you want to watch more of it. If you do decide to go check it out, let him know that you heard about him from us over here. That way, maybe he won't yell at me for playing some of his clip on my show. But it should fall under fair use since we're actively talking about it right now. And again, I grew up watching Knight Rider. It was a fun show. Granted, growing up and a dad that worked as a mechanic and a paint and body man, every show I ever liked to watch, everything from Dukes of Hazzard to Knight Rider, he took the time. Every time there was a jump scene that I was absolutely loving, that car didn't survive. That car didn't survive. There's no way that car made that jump, and helped to end the suspension of reality for me. Thanks, Dad. Anyway, all right. So we've got one more quick story to get to before we get out of here. And this one's probably going to hurt for some leftists again. Because everything's being weird, we're going to do this the not so clean way anymore. So bear with me for just a moment while I fix something. and get it loaded up on the screen. So hang on. And let's see. Share this tab instead. All right, so you know that had to hurt because that's been the leftist argument for this thing the whole time is they don't even have the stuff that he says that they have, and we have proof of that, blah, blah. And then you have 60 Minutes, the former bastion of liberal talking points, coming out and saying, hey, you know what? There actually is likely enough highly enriched uranium for at least 10 nuclear weapons. And that's the scariest thing about Iran, and has been scary for me for a long time. Nobody talks about the fact that because everybody's, well, we can't let them have a nuclear missile. We can't let them. Wait, you couldn't hear the cut again? Damn it. Damn it. Hang on. Let me fix it again, and we'll get out of here. I don't know why everything's being so glitchy today, but let me try again. Be able to tell me whether you're able to hear me or not while I was refreshing. But let's try this again. Because reasons, and then we'll get out of here. I don't know why everything's being so glitchy today. All right, so we should be on the screen again now, and hopefully you guys can hear it this time. Let me double check.
The war with Iran hinges on 3 letters, HEU, and it's believed Iran has enough of it underground to eventually make 10 nuclear bombs. What would it take for the U.S. to secure that highly enriched uranium? You'll hear about a covert mission that took place 32 years ago, and why a similar operation in Iran would be so difficult. Would an operation like this be worth risking American lives?
In my opinion, yes.
All right, so again, as I was saying a moment ago before I realized we were having a tech issue, this has to hurt for the left, but I already know what they're going to say. They're only doing this story the way that they're covering it because Donald Trump's friend is in charge at Paramount now. Trust me, I already know. But that doesn't change the fact that they're still having to tell you guys the truth that they do, in fact, have enough material for at least 10 weapons. And everybody talks about the missiles, and I get it. Here's the other thing. They've been lying to us about the range capabilities of their missiles. Now, granted, even though they can fly about 4,000 miles, they still can't seem to hit the broadside of a barn. But with a nuclear weapon, you don't really need to hit the broadside of a barn. And here's the other thing. If Iran has enough material to create 10 bombs, they don't even need missiles. All they would have needed was a border that was porous the way it was under the previous administration, and they could have snuck anything in here that they wanted to and made us all glow in the dark. This was why all of this was so important. I've said this before. It's almost like we forgot everything that happened in 1996, and we've forgotten everything that happened in 2001, and we just want to sing Kumbaya, hold hands, and all do ring around the rosy around a tree like a bunch of fucking hippies, because everybody just wants to get along. And as BZ just pointed out, the thing that bothers me about Islam, and I've said this before, is everybody tells me, well, there's way more peaceful Muslims than there are radicalized ones. Well, why don't they take care of their people? You know, and when's the last time you guys heard anything about Westboro Baptist Church? That's because the Christians in the community took care of Westboro Baptist Church and told them to sit down and shut the F up. That's kind of a big deal, and it should be a thing among Muslims. But here's the other problem. They have this entire practice of being able to lie to you should the need arise, and primarily being able to use it for their continued survival. Let's also not forget, these people want to wipe us off the map, especially the leaders in Iran, the ones that still remain. They believe they are the key to setting about the caliphate. For those of you who don't know what the caliphate is, that's their version of the rapture. That brings back first Jesus as a prophet again to usher in their actual savior, which if Jesus was just a prophet, I'm kind of surprised that according to their scripture, he's going to come back again. Because according to them, he's not the Son of God and never was, which again, just astounds me with something that I saw the Pope put out in a post just the other day, that it would be easier and more doctrinal to allow Muslims to practice the sacraments with Catholics than it would be for Protestants. Okay, so they don't even believe that Jesus is Jesus, bro. But you're going to let them do communion? Last I checked, there's supposed to be strict rules about communion, and if you take it under false pretenses, bad things can happen to you. But sure. Unfortunately, folks, that's where we're gonna have to leave the show. Again, I do have lots of material we didn't get to today, so we'll refresh it a little bit if the news stories don't change and come back with some of what we left on the table on Wednesday, since I've already got tonight's show mapped out. But I do have to go because I have a ton of errands to run before I come back for the show tonight, because, you know, the fun around here never stops. Want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out. Want to give a quick shout out to Rose, who was in the chat for a while, BZ, who stayed for the entire day, Michael, who happens to be a friend of mine from a previous life. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Bye. Say goodnight, Gracie.